Hey everybody, we got Jill Patterson with us today, legendary pounder Jill Patterson, who I was just looking at her Strava page the other day. I have very little to do in my spare time, and she's one of those great cyclists training out of the mid-Atlantic that is just one of those phenomenal cyclists that has 500 pages of top tens, 800 pages of QOMs. That might be an exaggeration, but not by much. I gave up counting after about 400 pages of QOMs. But she wins big events here in America, wins races, big events all over the world. She last year she goes to Colombia all the time, and so last year she did an actual camp in Colombia, and then this year I said, hey, Jill, let's try this again. Let's get a bunch of people. Let's do a great winter base training camp in summer of Colombia. She agreed. And so I really wanted Jill to talk about Colombia today and break it all down. All the great things that we'll be doing, the food that we'll be doing, eating, the sights that we'll be seeing. But first, let's get into Jill Patterson. She is hot off a huge win in Pittsburgh. They have this great legendary race every year where it's just all these massive, really steep, short climbs. Great race. And then I really want her to talk about she also won for the second year in a row the Gran Fondo National Championship, and really wanted to break that down. So Jill Patterson is a returning national champion in the Gran Fondo format through the Gran Fondo National Series. She also races the Gran Fondo New York Series all the time, and she has a lot of great wins in that race as well. Jill, welcome today to this podcast to discuss Colombia. But first, tell us all about Pittsburgh. That was last weekend, I believe, and you did great. So break that down for us.
Yeah, so thanks for the great introduction. That was awesome. Pittsburgh was unlike any race I've ever done. I kind of knew what it was because it's been on my radar for years and I had really wanted to do it. It was a bucket list item, and this was the first year that scheduling and my condition allowed for it. So I knew it was going to be epically steep, and I didn't go in with any other goals other than I just wanted to have fun. This was kind of my last race of the season. I had already gotten the national championship win. That was the icing on the cake for me. So I didn't need more icing on the cake, but I ended up getting a pretty epic win at the Dirty Dozen because I did something that had never been done before in that race, which was not my intention. I just luckily was able to do that. So
what was that one thing that no one else has ever done?
Drum roll. It was winning or getting first up every single hill. So it's the Dirty Dozen. So it's not 12 hills, it's 13 hills. And what they do is everyone, you leave in waves. So I left in the women's competitive wave. And you're all riding together, very easy in between the segments. And we had 2 leaders in our group. So they would stay out front and you weren't allowed to pass them. Very easy pace. And then as we got upon each of the segments or the hills, about 30 seconds out or 1 minute out, they'd say, okay, hill coming up. Then the one leader would go to the bottom, blow her whistle, and then game on. And they actually had another person who was following us in a car a little bit in front of us, and she would be standing at the top of the hill with a clipboard to record who comes in what order. Okay, so first hill, I just book it. I'm kind of sussing out the competition. I set a really hard pace. I get up that first.
How long are these hills? Like how long?
I think
how steep?
they're quite steep, at least 15%, if not more. Canton Avenue is in Wikipedia the steepest public road in the US. According to Wikipedia, and they say something like over 30% grade or for a stretch. So I mean, these are steep hills. And I was able to get up first on that first hill, but it's a bit of a shock to the system, and we were all like, whoa, okay, we have 12 more of these. And each hill, I would say, the longest one was maybe, honestly, no more than like 7 minutes. I didn't really time it. I wasn't paying attention. The shortest one, maybe 2 minutes. So they're not super long, and they're not all just walls for the entire time. There were a couple that had areas where you could kind of recover a little bit. There were some that you could not. And then what was very challenging, so hill 1 was steep. I knew it was going to be steep. It was a bit of a shock to the system. Hill 2, that one I was not prepared for, because that was steep and it was cobbled. And it was a little slick from like mud or something on it. And the cobbles were pretty chunky. So luckily I was towards the front of that one leading the pack up. And there's a woman next to me and she started wavering. And I knew, okay, that this is bad, because it's hard enough just to get up them. But the other challenge is people are going to be falling around you and you have to avoid that. So one of my strategies was just start at the front and try to stay in the front, so no one in front of me could fall and make me fall too. Because if you fall, I mean, you can go and do the hill again as many times as you want, and then you count as you can continue on in the race. That's fine. You just have to finish the hill at least once in all your attempts to continue and be counted for the final. But I had it in the back of my mind that, maybe, just maybe, I could win every single hill. And if you put your foot down and you fall and you go back to the bottom, you get 0 points for that hill. So I didn't want to put my foot down. I didn't want to fall. And so luckily I was able to stay in front in this cobbly section. It was kind of like a mental challenge of, okay, don't let this get into your head, because you get to these cobbles and you're like, whoa, am I going to fall? You really have to focus on the handling.
Right.
And if you mentally start freaking out, you're probably going to fall. So I just tried to stay calm and was like, okay, use your gravel training. You've done mountain biking. You can do this. Trust your wheels. Just keep pedaling. Like, never stop pedaling. Don't let that momentum lower. So was able to get up that hill. And then the hill of all hills is Canton. That's the one in Wikipedia. That's cobbled, super steep, not very long, but it's a famous one because most people who I talk to, they're like, oh, it took me 3 or 4 tries to get up Canton. Very few people that I had talked to had gotten up at their first try. And it was also raining a little bit that day. So on top of it, I was afraid it was going to be wet and slippery. So I got a lot of intel. The best line was the right-hand side. People told me, make sure you're in your easiest gear when you approach it. You got to do it standing. You cannot do it seated. Maybe some people could do it seated, but I wasn't even going to try that. And it was really cool because you start the segment, it's on pavement, and you make a left-hand turn, and then bam, there it is. And you can see the top, and you can see all these people on the stairs next to it. It's actually so steep that you can't really walk down this cobbled section. You'd probably fall on your butt. So they have a stairway on the side, and a bunch of people were just standing there cheering you. So you're hearing the cowbells, you're hearing the cheers. And I turned that corner and I was just so focused. I didn't have time to be nervous. I was just like, just go. And I stood up and I just thought, keep those legs moving. Do not slow them down, because I knew that if I start decreasing my speed, it's over. So I just tried to be almost like this machine of legs going. And interestingly, I was focused more on my upper body, not my legs. My legs knew what they were doing. Just keep going. My upper body, it was all about finding that balance, because to put such force on your legs to keep moving them, you kind of have to pull the bars to get that downward force. But if you pull the bars too hard, your front wheel lifts up and you're not balanced and you fall. So I was just kind of like trying to find the balance between that pull and that push. And this was like the hill. I knew I could get up all the other hills after this. And I knew if I fell on Canton, then my chances to set that record would be washed. And so this was like just such an epic challenge for me. And I was not expecting to get up my first time. I really wasn't, because everyone I had talked to said I fell my first time. So I remember the moment I'm going up thinking, just keep going, steady pace. You can do this. And I'm getting towards the top and it's starting to level out. And I realize I'm going to do this. I'm not going to fall. And that relief, that just like, wow, I can't believe I just did that. And like, wow, I'm in the running to make this record. Maybe I could actually do this. It like hit me. And that was a fantastic moment.
Yeah, well, that's so a lot of people might not realize this is a really popular race, especially in the mid-Atlantic. It's been going on for years. I don't know the history of it, but it is definitely one of those bucket list races that a lot of people do. And like you said, it was a bucket list race for you to do.
Mhm.
So congratulations on the big win. How many female competitors do you think there was on the day?
Ooh, that's a great question. I never counted. I would say like maybe 20.
Okay. And then how many
Yeah.
do you think for the full race? I mean, like, how
Oh,
many
okay,
people
so
were there just
several of them
total?
definitely, yeah. So 20 started, or around 20. I could be a little off on that. But by the end, there were several people who didn't finish some of the hills, so they were not in the final running. So I don't know how many finished. They do count 6 for the podiums, so I know those 6 women who were sharing the
And
podium with
then
me.
how many miles was the total day? So say
It
if you
was,
made up everyone the first time,
yeah.
every hill the first time, how many miles was the entire day?
For me, I think it was around 50 or 55
Yeah.
miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was probably around 5,500 feet. It was basically a 1-to-1 ratio of climbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have actually, if anyone's interested, they have something called the Onion in November 25th. And that's actually, it's not a race, it's not competitive, it's just go do it and complete it and have fun. But that's a 2-to-1 climbing ratio. So in 50 miles, you climb 10,000 feet. So it's
Yeah.
actually twice as much as the Dirty Dozen. It's just, you're not like racing up the hills. But
Sounds like a very
honestly,
good day.
even if you're not racing up those hills, just getting up those hills is so epic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not an easy day.
Well, congratulations. A lot of people, have been trying to get me to do it. It is a bucket list thing. It's a great part of the world. Like you said, it's just, filled with those short, punchy
Yeah.
climbs.
Yeah, you should
So
totally
that's,
do it.
yeah, yeah. Hey, so next thing before we jump into Colombia, really quick, tell us about the Gran Fondo National Series and your national championship.
So I've been doing races in that series for several years. I love the ones I've done. And they partnered with USA Cycling starting last year's race. And so I did that one. And that was, I believe, in Asheville. And I won that one. Actually, I could be wrong about Asheville. I would have to double check that. But yeah, so I was national champion starting last year, and then this year it came to Frederick, and I've done that race many years, maybe three
Yeah,
years
yeah,
before. So this might have been my 4th year, and so I knew the course. It suits me. I like it. You always have an advantage when you know the course when you've done it before. So I went. It was an absolutely miserable weather day. It was rainy. It was cold. I mean,
yep, yep.
I was
Can I tell you?
shivering.
Can I tell you something? So I had 5 athletes going for all the glory on that day. Right? They trained up. They were in the national championship contention. 5.
Mm,
Only one finished.
wow.
One ended in the hospital. There was a huge crash in front of him
Wow.
and he went
Oh,
down. He got an ambulance ride to the
oh my
hospital.
God.
So when Jill says like this was a cold ride, this is like a bit of understatement. Like one of my
Yeah.
guys is just this beast of a rider, completely trained up, training in Minnesota, the toughest of the tough. And he didn't make it, right? So
Wow.
this was a it
Yeah.
was the weather was worse than what they thought. It got
Mhm,
colder than what they thought,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
it was a brutal day. So this is
Yeah.
a so go ahead. Sorry to jump in there.
Yeah, no, it was pretty awful. And I remember there was a rest stop at mile 50 because it's time segments. So in between the time segments, you can ride a little bit easier. You can stop at the rest stops. I love that format. It's really great. So we all stopped. I was with a big group and we stopped at this rest stop at mile 50. And the temperature had gotten into the 50s at that point. We're all wet. I'm shivering there. Like I can't even stand up. I'm like folded over because I'm shivering so hard. And I'm thinking, I'm only at mile 50. Like I have another 50 miles and I'm this miserable. Like what?
Yeah.
How can I do this? Luckily, the rain did stop eventually. I did warm up. and I got through it, and I was able to win the segments and come in first. And that was, you never know how you're doing, because you're racing sort of the clock, like you're racing everybody else, but they could be coming behind you in a different wave, putting out faster times on these segments, and you just don't know. So I don't know how I'm doing until the end. I just know that I have to try my hardest and go my fastest on every single segment. So it's an all out, like as much as you have type of effort, which is a little different than other races. You know, other races you can use strategy, and really it just matters that you pass that finish line first. So if you're racing with other people, you can go slow, 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 and then boom, fast. But for this Gran Fondo time segment, you can't go slow. You have to go as fast as you can for start to finish. And some of these segments are like 35 minutes, 40 minutes long. So you're really on the edge for a very long time in that segment.
Yeah.
But
And so
great day.
so at the end of the day, the Gran Fondo National Series, the national championship jerseys are age grouped.
Yes,
But so you won your age group, but
correct.
and they don't have a jersey for this, but what was your placing within the female category?
I was first, so I
Yes.
won the
So
overall,
yeah,
and same with last year. Also, I placed first. So they do a
yeah.
podium. It's not for the national championship.
Yeah, first overall female, first overall in your age group, on literally one of the most brutal
Yeah.
days. So here's what's funny, so I'm sitting there, I'm at my own race, and I get a text from one of my athletes, and it was early, and that's not a good sign. And he says, I'm at a rest stop. I just called an Uber, and that's all it said. I texted him back. I
Wow.
said, warm up, get back out there.
Aw,
Right. And he did,
yeah.
he
Yeah.
called an Uber from a rest stop.
Wow.
Right. And
Honestly,
got back.
I would have
Yeah.
DNF'd. If this was not the national championship, I would have been like, you know what? Nope.
It was brutal. And the guy that
Yeah.
called me from the Uber, he texted me from the Uber. It was just such a tough guy.
Wow.
He's doing 3:30. He's starting his training rides at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Starting his rides before a long work day. Like,
Oh
this
my
guy was
gosh.
just in amazing shape. But then he just didn't have a rain jacket of anything
Oh,
whatsoever. And
yeah.
so as soon as he got home, like, he
Mm.
ordered like every rain jacket that they make, right? So that he
Wow.
could make sure that he was unprepared. There was one
Yeah.
woman that won it. And so, the whole day for you is 100-mile day,
Yeah.
right? There are you race the segments, but it is 100-mile day for you guys. And there was a 70-year-old woman who did she won her age group, right? She made it the 100 miles. I really want to talk to her. That
Yeah.
was an incredible day, especially
Yeah.
I had 5 athletes and 4
Mm.
didn't make it, right? And they did all the preliminary stuff, went to the preliminary events, did all the training. And so, like, that was a brutal day. And you look at the results of that day, there was just DNF, DNF,
Yeah.
DNF, like everybody. There were so
Mm.
many DNFs on that day.
You
So
know, one of
that's
my friends, he's been racing for like 20 years, and he told me, "Oh, this is like top 3 worst conditions I've ever raced in." Yeah.
it was sleet. There was ambulances. And so, yeah, it was a brutal day. But I think it really highlights, one thing, I've known you for years. It's one of those, you just have this inner beast in you, right? To get up that hill in Pittsburgh, to finish that race in the sleet, the snow, the lightning. One guy was texting me, he's like, there's lightning, and so, it's funny. I was like, when they're texting me from a race, I'm like, this is not good. This is
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
So you do have that inner beast. All right, Jill. So tell us about Colombia. What can we expect?
Oh my gosh. So I'm so excited. Like you said, I've been to Colombia so many times. It's one of my favorite places to ride. First thing you can expect in January, it's miserably cold here. It's nice and warm there.
Yeah,
Colombia is like the
yeah.
country of eternal spring. It's just perfect weather every day, cool, comfortable nights, warm days, 60s, 70s. You might get a little rain, but you know, honestly, I've lucked out every time I've been there. It's been great weather. So
Yeah.
beautiful roads. You're in the coffee lands, so you see these coffee finca all around you. uh just a lot of climbing, but don't be afraid, you know. It's very doable, you can do it. Like, please
Yeah.
come. It's kind of choose your own pace, choose your own adventure. You don't need to stay with the group. uh you know, you can ride at whatever pace you want, because Altos, the company that we're partnering with, they're so well versed in this. They've been running these tours for years. They're one of the longest standing in Colombia for tours. And so they understand that the group dynamics, they're going to be people of different paces, and they have plenty of
Right.
support. So, you know, you and I will be there to ride with people. They'll have another rider. So we'll be bouncing back and forth between everyone. I'm excited to ride with people. You know, last year, there was a woman and she wanted to work on some skills, and I rode with her, and we worked together on her shifting and her standing and climbing and descending. And she told me, she was like, Jill, I've asked so many people these things before and I've gotten so much advice, but this day with you has been way more helpful than anything I've ever learned, and thank you, thank you, thank you. So she went home with just wonderful skills, and I am there for you. Like, I am not there for my own training camp, like, not you, Lee, sorry. You, all the listeners. And you know, whatever you want to learn and practice with me, I will go with you. I will look at what you're doing. I'll give you hints. Yeah, I'm very good at that. Like, I can kind of noodle down and what people are doing, and you know, figure out exercises or drills that work for them. It's all very unique and individualized. I'm not just following like a textbook of try this drill. No, like, I look at you and we do whatever I think you need. So please come. It's like a week of free coaching. It's a week of amazing riding. It's a week of amazing food, amazing people. It's fun, really nice accommodations. Like, once you get there, they take care of you. You don't need to worry about anything. Everything's included in the cost. The only thing on top of the cost is the airfare. You need to get yourself there. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful January cold weather, you know, get a little bit of springtime adventure.
Yeah, so I love this. And so, you and I have started doing camps together back maybe 2018, right? And so
Yeah.
we've led a lot of people through skills like, just learning how to descend.
Yeah.
It's a skill, and it's a skill that can be learned, and there's lots of steps. And once you learn those descending skills, you get a lot better. And so, yeah, we'll work on that. We'll work on climbing. We'll work on pace lining. Like, there's so many awesome things to learn. Nutrition, fueling, hydration, post recovery stuff, post ride work, pre ride work, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much to learn. And so you and I are just both in it, full-time coaches. And, there's just working with athletes, doing it for years, making them better, giving them excitement, giving them confidence, and just really, having a great time doing it. And so, as you said, it's winter here in America. January is a great time. It's a popular time. People in America are taking off, especially in the mid-Atlantic. They're going down to Florida to train in January and February. They're headed to California. They're headed to Majorca. They're headed all over the world in January and February because it can get dark. And so Colombia, which really embraces cycling as their national sport, which is very different from America. Cycling is obviously popular in America, but it's by far not our national sport. It's going to be great. The people are great. The food is going to be fantastic. And like you said, Altos is really going to just make sure that we have an unbelievable trip over those 5 days. And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't wait to get it. I remember my car was broke down. I was waiting on $100 part that they just couldn't find. Like, all last December and January, I was just stuck here in the mountains, and I just didn't get away at all. And I was like, man, I want to do something next January. So this is a great thing to do it. Jill and I will be working together, working with you, just having a great time. And it's going to be a beautiful experience. So Jill, what's your final pitch to get people to come to Colombia with us? And then we'll wrap this up.
I think this is an adventure Some people worry about the safety. Don't. It's amazing. I love Colombia. The people in Colombia are so kind. They're so amazing. It's just everything about this trip. It's wonderful. And actually, a lot of people who came last year, they're repeating. So this is worth it. You know, if people want to repeat it, yeah, it's a good trip. So please come. If you can't come, tell people, tell your friends, they can come. And
Yeah.
also keep in mind, this might be the last year I'm doing it. So this, you know, don't put it off.
Yep.
Like, just
Yep.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to live your life. Just jump right in.
Seize the day.
Yeah.
That's you know, we learned that you know, the past couple years with COVID, where you know, so yeah, just
Mhm.
jump in,
Yeah.
get down to Colombia, have a great time with us. Reach out to either myself or Jill if you have any questions about going to Colombia. We really want you there. So everybody, thanks so much for joining us today, and really happy to have Jill with us. Thanks, everybody.